Hi, everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box. Man, the month of May has provided us some good stuff. I'm almost sorry to see it end, Tariq.
Yeah, I know. We're heading in this Memorial Day weekend, and the NBA Finals, when do they start again? I think June 1st?
Something like Game 7 of the Garden, the Boston Garden will be on Memorial Day.
Oh, don't you?
I'm not calling my shot.
Don't worry about him. Don't worry about him. Don't worry.
And these guys, you're wearing an Amerks jersey, have just added to the pleasure of the month.
They almost feel like a team of destiny at this point. Got the Randy Cunneyworth St. Patrick's Day Moose jersey on. I'm loving this. And the fact that we've been able to watch the away games in Hershey on MSG.
How cool is that?
Oh, it's been great. Yeah. Awesome.
Carmelo Anthony retired this week.
Oh, before Duffy goes in on Carmelo Anthony, historic belief in history of him, you got to understand that this guy is going to be an NBA Hall of Famer. I mean, 75 greatest players of all time. Olympic Carmelo, basically, I think 3 or 4 gold medals.
I think it's 3.
Bronze. I forgot about the bronze. I always forget about that. But at any rate, you know full well Syracuse fans will always love him. Gets into the NBA, 3rd pick overall. That's LeBron year. We all know a bit about that. Played great. Not going to retire his number 15 in Denver, that's for sure. But you will retire number 7 in New York. Yes, you will. Stop, leave it alone. Leave it alone. You know full well he has been the best Knick. The best NBA Knick for the last 2 decades, and you know it.
That's not saying anything.
It does to me. He's going into the Hall of Fame and leaving it alone. Look, he couldn't even resist. I couldn't even get through the take.
I'm sorry. I didn't think that horrible.
Bias came out of nowhere.
Well, the thing is, I was gonna ask you, being the Knicks guy, obviously that you are. If Carmelo Anthony, if you could look at this objectively, wouldn't have been better served staying in Denver, not coming to New York at all?
Possibly, but I mean, he wanted to come. I mean, he wanted to get out of Denver. Denver took a long time to rebuild. Look at where they are now. Look how long it took. I mean, it was the right place for him to go. The Knicks needed a superstar, got that superstar. Couple of years with injuries that came in that kind of spoiled their chances to go on a big run. I mean, it just didn't work right for him. Not going to get that ring.
I'm kind of with you. I think his career seemed diminished after he came to New York.
So look, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Carmelo Anthony because he's a really good basketball player. He was a great college basketball player, right? Here's your statement of the day.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Darko Milicic, Carmelo Anthony would have been the biggest disappointment of that draft. And you know it's true. The kid, he's older than me now.
19 years. Darko's not even in the league.
No, I understand. Look, he had a great career. But the question we're asking is Carmelo Anthony great? And yes, he's going to make the Hall of Fame. Because everybody makes the NBA Hall of Fame.
Yep.
I'm actually in the NBA Hall of Fame. I don't know, Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah.
Well, all 3 of us are in there. You don't even know you're in.
No, I don't even know I'm in.
Look, man, when you line him up against the greats of his generation. People want to cite top 10 scoring. If you go down the top 10 highest point getters in NBA history, he's the only non-difference maker. And that's what it is. He's a great player, a great scorer, a defensive liability, and he was not a difference maker.
How does a guy get upset at a comment that he's a Hall of Famer and then make the same comment he's going to be a Hall of Famer, knowing full well there are guys that with no rings, barely as many All-Star games,
right about the whole
in the
idea
Hall of Fame.
That it isn't an NBA Hall of Fame, it's a basketball Hall of Fame, and he gets big points for the Olympics and big points for what he did in Syracuse.
Yeah, Christian Laettner's got a gold medal. Should he get in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame too?
Oh my God!
I'm just asking a
You're
question.
comparing Christian Laettner to Carmelo Anthony. Are we really having this conversation?
Christian Laettner doesn't have bronze.
Oh my God!
So what your recollections of what he
didn't play on
did
the
in
Dream
Syracuse?
I'm sorry?
It's nice to kind of dial the clock back in 2003 and what he did in Syracuse. And when I look at game by game of that year and how things went, he was clearly their star.
Sure.
But he wasn't the only guy. This was not all Carmelo. That was a really nice team.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, from 1 to 5, that entire team, they played really well together. Carmelo was he stirred the drink, and that was the fatal flaw in his NBA career. I don't know if it was him overestimating his talent. I don't know if it was general managers overestimating his talent. When he was the focal point on a solid 5-man team, he's a great player. When he's your guy, you're in trouble.
I get the leadership questions, but we're going to results. We're going with numbers. And what is your problem with Carmelo? Just lay it on the line. He's retiring now. He's out of the league. It's all over.
No.
What was the issue with you and Carmelo?
I have no issue.
Yes, you do.
I like Carmelo. It bothers me when you have Bosh, Wade, LeBron, the tail end of AI. You have all of these superstars. Gilbert Arenas. How about this? I mean, if you're asking me to take a guy to start a team with,
Don't you dare say
I'm
that.
taking Gilbert
Get
Arenas
out of here.
over. I'm
Get
taking
out.
Carmelo
Next
Anthony. If it's coming
segment.
from pure
Bill
basketball
Pucko,
skill,
let's move to the
pure
next
basketball
segment.
skill, Gilbert Arenas,
La.
better all-around ball
I don't want to
player.
hear it.
Well,
I don't wanna hear it.
we'll give you the last word on this. What is the thing you liked best about Carmelo Anthony and why you're such a defender?
I just think the fact that he wanted to be in New York, the Knicks needed a big superstar. He played his butt off. Of course, he had a couple different injuries. One year, I think it was one year where Stoudemire was hurt.
I didn't really
No problem with
anticipate Carmelo Anthony being such a divisive topic.
I don't understand it either. Tell me you didn't want him to fight Kevin Garnett, though.
He wasn't going to fight. Who wants to fight Kevin Garnett? What are you, nuts?
The guy showed up to his bus to meet him there on the way out.
We have the Rochester Press Box. We're talking Buffalo Bills next. Just passing through. J-Mac, Soccer Sam Fantuzzo, Loretta Scott, Joe Beard, 29 in all, life lessons from notable Rochesterians. Available now.
I have some travel books, Volume 1, Volume 2. You'll be able to get one of these books for free when you buy the new Volume 2 for only $14.95. Contact me at MikeTheGetawayGuy@gmail.com.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box. Our Buffalo Bills segment is brought to you by Ralph Honda. For 3 generations, celebrating 50 years as New York's first and oldest Honda dealer. Visit Ralph Honda today. Find out how we do Honda right at ralphhonda.com. This whole thing with DeAndre Hopkins is like, DeAndre keeps saying things and like, I want to play for a guy who sounds a lot like Josh Allen. Is there any way that DeAndre Hopkins winds up in a Bills uniform?
I don't think it's possible, just from a financial standpoint, right? You've already rearranged the contracts all the way you can to have the people you have on your roster right now. You're relying legitimately, potentially on 3rd and 4th round draft picks to contribute this year if things are going to be solid. How do you bring DeAndre Hopkins here, right? You going to trade Ed Oliver? I mean, his contract isn't worth that much for what's coming in. And here, the other question. Do you want DeAndre Hopkins right now? Yeah. Age is an issue. The situations he's been through with other teams is an issue. The fact that he has flip-flopped 3 different times, agent says he wants a trade, he shows up at the Arizona facility, goes, no, I never said that out loud, and then does an interview where he names Josh Allen as the #1 quarterback he would want to play with this year. I don't know what's going on with this guy. It's making me nervous.
Well, it's making me nervous because it's kind of like this football flirting. When did we start doing this whole sort of, this guy wants to be here?
Very
this guy
NBA-ish.
Well, it is, but sometimes it results in actual change in the NBA. This comes from this Von Miller thing, and it's just a bizarre sort of world where we're trying to create the narrative to get guys to come here. Meanwhile, you've got a wide receiving core that's pretty damn solid. I mean, I don't know why you would mess with that unless you're planning on trading somebody big back.
Look, I agree with you. And look, the rumors with Stephon Diggs not being at minicamp this week again, even though he never really shows up to this stuff anyway, is, well, he's positioning himself out of town to do a 1-for-1 swap, which would be absolutely insane and winnable financially. But look, never put anything past Brandon B. To say it's impossible is a dumb thing to say. But I cannot see a way in which it works for either team.
How do you feel if you're Kyler Murray? I mean, you've got your wide receiver, and they say, well, we could bring him back, but he's done everything but just burn that bridge and make it impossible to return.
Kyler Murray's got a lot of work to do to not only convince the organization and the fan base to believe in him again. He's going to need a lot of wins very early on in the NFL
that's
season.
not going to happen.
Well, I mean, that's up to Kyler Murray now. This is what happens when you ask for the check, you get the check, and you get the leadership bill. The leadership bill here is you've got all these guys basically saying, I want out of here. Now, I get that they don't want to restructure, and you can build a roster pretty quickly in the NFL. It takes about a year, 2 years if you get the right guys in there. But I don't know. Arizona's got a lot of work to do, and Kyler Murray is the #1 reason why people are questioning what they're going to be able to do this year.
And to some of the things you'd said before, you have to be careful bringing a potential malcontent into your roster. I mean, Diggs had problems in Minnesota. He wasn't a great teammate in Minnesota, and Hopkins isn't behaving that way right now.
He's been a great teammate for the last 3 years until just now.
Exactly. Like, you're making the argument as to why to bring in DeAndre Hopkins, right? You don't know what a situation is inside a locker room and all that stuff. I would think that with what the Bills have built, I always thought culture was a stupid thing. And then I watch what happened in Buffalo, and I'm watching what's happening with Miami Heat and all these things, right? I would trust the locker room to be able to hold everything together if things were to go south. That being said, why make things harder on yourself if you don't have to?
Culture is an interesting thing to do a whole show on culture. Like, did the culture precede the winning or did the winning produce the culture?
Well, but in Buffalo, we know for a fact, we watched it happen. The culture preceded the winning. You had a guy in McDermott clapping his hands as loud as he could, saying, trust the process. And I personally laughed at him the entire time, being the jaded Bills fan that had wandered through the wilderness for 17 years. Here we are now. You can't argue with results.
Trust the process. And they're saying that Philadelphia 76ers right now. Trust the process. And then
how to work there.
Culture, you know what I mean?
Our Buffalo Bills segment is brought to you by Ralph Honda. Like it or not, is next. Here's the Press Box Trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road.
Just a preview to the big guy over there, which I'm about to show you. It's the perfect waterfall family getaway. Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy. I'll take you here. Look for the getaway guy on Facebook.
Just passing through. Maggie Brooks, Officer Denny Wright, Mike Catalana, John Dady. 29 in all, life lessons from notable Rochesterians. Available now. Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Our Like It or Not segment is brought to you by Sport Clips, where the MVP experience is better than ever. Sport Clips, the pros in men's hair, no appointment needed. Stop by a Rochester location today. Tariq, we touched on at the very beginning. Boy, the NBA has been really fascinating.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting. Like, for example, we're taping this right now. We're not quite sure if we assume Miami's going to win by now. I don't want to assume.
Not Bill.
Yeah, I know.
Wouldn't you like to see that go 7 games? And the fact is, it's 0-150 about teams that have been down 0-3. The Celtics don't fit the mold of a team that have gotten down those games, and I don't think they necessarily apply to that stat because they came into the series as favorites. Very few favorites get down 0-3.
You're Boston showing. I'm sorry. I
Come on, pre-show. You brought into this theory. You can't turn on me now.
Go 7 because we pretty much were shorted that Denver Lakers series.
No, you're right.
So go 7 ain't too bad. I'll side with you on that. But I think it's interesting the fact that this will split the country going forward. Here's one of the best NBA teams in the entire season long. And a team,
you're talking who?
The Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
And they basically, no one's ever seen them play. They're not really on prime time a lot. A lot of people saw them for the first time against the Lakers series because of the Lakers. Yet they're going up against Jimmy Butler, which you and I know, Duffy, is the root for 8th seed that could come out and win this whole thing. Nobody talked about the Heat at the beginning. They said, can the Warriors do it? Mm-hmm. Can the Lakers put it together? Can the Nuggets do it? And the Boston Celtics can go back. Everybody kind of sat there and like, how is Jimmy Butler doing this? Even as a Knicks fan, how is Jimmy Butler doing this? Guess what? He shows up, blue collar, works hard, and everybody, since the bubble, I've definitely followed his career and rooted for him.
Butler's getting some help. I mean, it's rotating around these guys you never heard of.
I don't know.
He's getting something.
I mean, look, he is, but you have a roster in Miami. They only have 2 top 10 NBA draft picks on that roster. They have 2 guys, undrafted free agents, that are starting for them right now. That being said, it's really hard as a basketball nerd to figure out who you want to cheer for, because I'm loving Jimmy Butler right now. The guy's a killer. The way that they're playing ball in Miami, Spoelstra is coaching that team up way beyond where they're supposed to be playing. At the same time, if you are a basketball nerd, Denver plays the game the right way. The ball moves fast. They shoot well. You know what I'm saying? As someone who enjoys the game, I like watching what Denver does. So if it ends up being Denver and Miami, I don't know who I'm pulling for.
I'm pulling for Jimmy Butler. You should too.
I like Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler got a ring. I mean, Denver's been wandering through the desert for 40 years, ABA in and out. They've never even been to a championship before. I mean, this is all very exciting. Do it for Alex English.
Let's talk about the uniform. There are these guys are, as we do the show, have won 7 playoff, the Amerks have won 7 playoff games in a row.
Sure.
And I was at one of the games in the Toronto series, the deciding game. Man, the place is rocking and it's full. I've never seen the War Memorial like that.
It is insane. We tape this. We're taping this on Wednesday. The game is pretty much already sold out for Friday. The game is going to sell out for Monday because it's a guaranteed 4 games in the 7-game series here. I mean, when Rochester has something to cheer for, we go out. We love hockey. Western New York, loves hockey. And when you go sit in an arena, it is insane that of the 10,000 people there, like you go to a Red Wings game, it's just a good time, right? There are your baseball fans, but there's a lot of folks there just to have chicken in a waffle cone with mashed potatoes on it. You go to a hockey game, 80% of that rink, that barn, knows exactly what's going on, who's out there, who should be out there. It's an experience to watch a hockey game with something on the line in Rochester.
Did anybody think that they would be here, though? That was the other end of this. Did you think to yourself they would go on the run they're going on right now?
I mean, it wasn't out of the question, only because they've made strides the last couple of seasons. You have a really good young core that's going to be contributing in Buffalo the next couple of years. You have some great veteran leadership. You know, the captain, Mesh, has been unbelievable. And again, like we talked about last week, Malcolm Subban is the goalie of the Rochester Americans, and he knows he's the goalie of the Rochester Americans. 5-1 win in Game 1 against Hershey. He's playing really well.
Our Like It or Not segment brought to you by Sport Clips, Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. Come home to McArdle's.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Just passing through. Don Elhart, Roosevelt Bowie, Naomi Silver, the late harmonica Pete. 29 in all, life lessons from notable Rochesterians. Available now. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Time for Unfinished Business, brought to you by the Genesee Brew House, your beer destination since 2012. Visit the gift shop, enjoy a tasting at our pilot brewery, and dine at the pub-style restaurant at the Genesee Brew House. Pat.
Brooks Koepka was the champion of the PGA Championship at Oak Hill last weekend, and nobody cares because of Michael Block, the club pro from California in his mid-40s who came out of nowhere in second place early on in the tournament, held his own, played with adopted Rochester hometown golfer Rory McIlroy, hit a hole-in-one, aced at 15. It doesn't even make sense physically how that ball went in the cup straight down and didn't bounce out. But the fact of the matter is this. Michael Block saved the PGA this weekend in Rochester. Brooks Koepka is a controversial figure. Now, that's his third PGA Championship win. He's won a whole bunch of majors. He should be celebrated for something like that. But he won't be for a lot of golf fans because he abandoned the PGA to go play for the Saudi-owned LIV Tour. A bunch of those guys did. And the fact that they had a LIV golfer win in one of the few tournaments he's allowed to play in the PGA would have been a public relations disaster. The fact that Michael Block did what he did, the fact that we all saw ourselves in what Michael Block was doing completely pushed aside Brooks Koepka and the accomplishment that he pulled off in front of everybody's face. If it wasn't for Michael Block's story, the entire discussion of the PGA Championship would have been, when are the LIV golfers coming back? But unless you're in hardcore golf circles, that's not happening. We're all loving Michael Block, and nobody loves Michael Block more than the PGA right now.
When people talk about how much money certain commentators make and comments that they make, you have to look at Charles Barkley. Remember, Charles Barkley actually did an ad where he said he wasn't a role model. Parents are role models. He was right, but got a lot of flack for it. Charles Barkley also said that Nikola Jokic was an unbelievable player and everybody should watch Denver a few years ago. They did. They didn't perform, but they are now, basically, for a guy that could have been MVP multiple times over, and if he continues to play, will do so. So we often wonder why people get big bucks for making comments and opinions that are on the edge and seem totally crazy and outrageous. Remember Charles Barkley and any other contract that he gets from now on. He says the outrageous things, but then when they become true, everybody else falls in line. So you'll love Denver, you'll love Jokic, you'll love everything that's going on because the entire media will focus in on them for these NBA finals. But just remember, it took an outlandish sort of on the edge kind of guy to tell you to watch this team years ago. You thought he was crazy. Nope, he was right.
Was there ever a more complex athlete than Jim Brown, who died this past week at the age of 87? Consider that Brown was raised on Long Island by secondary family members, his mother absent, his father never mentioned. An athletic resume that included playing water polo in high school, can you imagine that? Pointed him towards Syracuse University. He earned letters in 4 sports, considered the greatest lacrosse player ever by many. They changed the rules of that game in his honor. Football was his meal ticket, even while playing for a coach in Ben Schwartzwalder, who didn't really want him. Thought the black athlete was too much trouble until Brown got too good. Brown once scored 43 points in a game, a football game, for Syracuse. 6 touchdowns and 7 extra points against Colgate in 1956. Led the nation in touchdowns and kick returns. Drafted 6th overall by the Cleveland Browns in 57. In his 9th game as a rookie, he ran for a record 237 yards. In a 9-year career, Jim Brown led the league in rushing 8 times, won 3 MVPs, and left the game as its leader in single season and career yards. He had the speed to run past tacklers and the power to run through them. He preferred the latter, and he never missed a game. Then in 1966, while shooting the film The Dirty Dozen in England, Browns owner Art Modell threatened to fine him $100 a day. $100 a day for missing training camp. So at the age of 30, at the height of his abilities, rather than pay that fine, Brown retired from football, said he needed to do something that was more mentally challenging. He became a civil rights activist on par with Bill Russell and was a mentor to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, worked tirelessly against gang violence with the street cred to get results. Yet there was a long history of domestic violence, 6 arrests. Once given a choice between violence counseling, community service, or jail, Brown chose to be locked up for 4 months. He picked football over lacrosse in the Olympics, acting over football. The civil rights activists who supported Presidents Nixon and Trump, who famously were not, preached respect and dignity, yet he assaulted women, unapologetic to the end. Columnist Leonard Green of the Daily News says it best, I think. Quote, life is complicated and so was Jim Brown. The bad was very bad. The good was exceptional. We don't have to choose between the two. That's our Unfinished Business, brought to you by the Genesee Brewhouse, and that is our program. Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it. Enjoy the Memorial Day weekend.
Right back at you.
Happy holidays. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.